Income inequality under the microscope. Have you been wondering why there is so much hype about income inequality? Is this just a bunch of have-nots griping about their dead-end situations? Or is there something real behind all these complaints? Let's take a look. In recent decades, supply-side economists have claimed that giving tax cuts to the rich has boosted the economy by promoting more jobs, which have benefited everyone, creating broad-based prosperity that has equally lifted all boats. Others have claimed that's a myth, that supply-side policies favor the rich at the expense of the poor, creating income and wealth disparities that promote economic inequality. So, who's right? To answer that question, we must follow the money. What we really need is to track incomes over time to see if they are becoming more or less equal. But we must be careful to look at more than monetary incomes. As supply-siders will be quick to point out, annual income is only part of the story. For example, rich people pay more in taxes than poor people, and poor people get a lot of benefits from the government, such as social welfare programs like food stamps and healthcare programs like Medicare and Medicaid. Some would say they are the takers. So we need to compare net incomes after adjusting for all those taxes and benefits. That is the only possible fair comparison. In 2011, the Congressional Budget Office had published that exact study of American household incomes over a 28-year period, an entire generation that spans the interval from the beginning of Reagan's first term to the end of George Bush's second term. Those were the two most supply-side oriented presidents in history. With meticulous care, the investigators accounted for every plus and minus to provide our perfect report. Let's take a look. Imagine that we have lined up all American households in 1979 from those with the lowest income to those with the highest, all in a single tower. If we go 1/5 of the way up this tower, we will reach the 20th percentile, where annual household income was $18,650 after taking into account all taxes and benefits. That means 20% of households made less than this and 80% made more. If we go further up the tower, we find incomes continue to grow as we would expect. At the 80th percentile, we come to a salary of nearly $50,000. All these figures are expressed in 2018 dollars to adjust for inflation. Just for fun, let's take a look at the top 1%. The 99th percentile, which is the floor for this elite group, was $200,000 per household. And now we have a complete picture of the distribution of salaries in 1979. But what happened to each of these points over time? Here are those same 5 groups presented a different way. What happened to the bottom tier over 28 years? Their income advanced to almost $23,000, a 23% relative increase. A 23% increase over 28 years. That's less than 1% per year. Not very impressive for a world-class economy. Those at the 40th percentile had a 30% increase, and the next two groups did even better, advancing by 39% and 47%. Now that's interesting. The higher the income in 1979, the greater the percentage increase over time, which makes the differences get even bigger. That's what we mean by growing inequality. Now what happened at the very top? The income at the 99th percentile grew by an astonishing 118%, more than doubling in size. It seems the economy has not been equally kind to everyone. While household income at the first tier grew by barely more than $4,000, income at the top tier grew by more than $160,000. And this is after accounting for all the taxes paid by the rich and all the benefits received by the poor, all the giving and taking. The tide is not lifting all boats. Myth busted. I'm curious to know how this disparity impacted the distribution of the income pie. So let's imagine everyone divided into 5 equal-sized boxes stacked on top of each other, each with 20% of households. The bottom group earned only 7% of all income in 1979, which means 20% of the people were sharing 7% of the money. The next 20% had a 12% share. The middle group had a 16% share, and the upper middle group had 22%. The top 20% took all the rest, 43%. Again, let's see how this changed during the supply-side era. First, The bottom 20% saw their portion shrink from 7% to 5%. That means the bottom 20% are now fighting over 5% of the pie, including all those benefits they get. The next group also shrank from 12 to 9. The middle group shrank from 16 to 14, and even the income of the upper middle group shrank from 22 to 19. In modern-day America, even upper middle-class Americans do not get an equal share. And why is everyone shrinking? Because all these missing pieces of the pie, of course, have been added to the top group's income share, now 53%, more than half the pie. Imagine 5 people are sharing a pie. The first person takes more than half. How does that make everyone else feel? And what about the top 1%? They went from an 8% slice in 1979 to 17% in 2007. Their share more than doubled in 28 years. Astonishing. That means that the top 1% is the only group who gained, and their gain was equal to the losses of everyone else put together. I guess now we know who the takers really are. Middle-class Americans are losing ground all right, but not to the folks at the bottom. Not to the poor. Not even to the near-rich. Their lost share is going up to the very top. To the ultra-rich. All of it. We have just looked at annual income. What about wealth? Is the wealth pie becoming more unbalanced as well? The answer is a resounding yes, based on nearly a century of data. Here are American households divided into just 2 groups based on wealth. The top 10% and then everybody else. In 1928, the bottom 90% of households held 20% of the wealth, while the top 10% held 55%. That's not very equal. And what about the rest? Actually, there's a third group. At the very top of the 10% group is an extremely narrow slice, literally the upper crust, which comprises 0.1% of the population, or 1 in 1,000. In 1928, this tiny group held a quarter of all the wealth. They had a bigger share than the 90%. This was an era of great income disparity. But over the next 50 years, there was a dramatic shift in the distribution of wealth as the 90% saw their share almost doubling to 35%, while the share of the upper crust declined to 8%. It seems the working class was finally getting their due. This was the golden age of income distribution. What happened over the next generation, however, is too painful to share. 34 years of supply-side economics restored the balance almost exactly to the 1928 pattern. Did you notice the striking comparison? Check the current wealth share for the top 0.1% compared to the bottom 90%. Practically the same. Unbelievably, for every 1,000 American households, the one at the top has as much wealth as the bottom 900 households combined. When it comes to income inequality, we have turned back the clock by nearly a century. Hi, I'm Nate Link, and I hope you were enlightened by this video essay. For more video essays on evidence-based politics and science, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Nate Link MD, and read my book, The Ailing Nation, winner of 2 National Book Awards and available online at Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Thank you.